Is this?
Okay. What am I looking at?
Well, that's my question. This is, I think it's the stuffing box.
Yep. Yep. An old school stuffing box. You bet.
Yeah. But I didn't see any way. I took it out of the watertight cylinder end cap, and because I wanted to JB weld it rather than just RTV it.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't see any way to load it with grease, and I'm afraid it would have just leaked. So is there a replacement for this, or is this the deal?
No. You can build. I've got a video online about how to, or to build your own seals, or I can sell you them. I have them in 16th, 8th inch, and 3/16 inch.
Okay.
Yeah, they're called I think high quality cup seals or something like that is the actual term. It's under RC components.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it's a lot better. So instead of being like a 3-inch long tube, it's
Right.
like a 3/4 inch long tube with a built-in oil impregnated bronze bushing and a cup seal.
I remember that video. This is what I had, and I recall these from 100 years ago.
Yep.
Normally they have a way to put grease in them, but this one doesn't. This would have not stopped anything.
I'm trying to remember. Dave's connecting here right now. I remember some of those when they were made used actual rubber seals though.
Yeah, well, this one doesn't have that.
Oh, it's just bushings and a hollow tube.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does it have 2 punch marks on the tube?
It has 2, 4, 6, 8, 7, 8, 9 of them.
Holy crap. If it's one of Skip's, it had a cup seal in it along with a sintered bronze bushing.
Yeah.
Well,
And it was just a matter of 3-in-1 oil, and that's all they ever used on it.
well, I'm not seeing anything. It just looks like a hollow void to me.
You'd have to go in there with a little pick, and you could find the thing, but you could also tear the seal easily too.
Yeah, I don't want to do that.
If it's that old, just scrap it and replace it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I don't know how long ago this was built. This came in, this watertight cylinder came in Steve's LA class. And then he didn't want it, so Bob sold it to me, and I'm getting close to being able to dunk it, but I was worried about this.
Yeah, I would be worried too.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Yep. Okay. Kind of what I thought. So
You can also dissect it just for your own edification.
Yeah.
Take it apart.
That wouldn't be a bad thing.
Just cut off one end with a Dremel or something, or check it out. What do you got to lose? It's already scrapped.
Nothing.
Yep.
Got nothing to lose. Because yeah, you're right. I'm not going to use it, so why bother?
Yeah.
Good plan.
So what's the temperature in Texas?
It was like 80 today.
80.
Cloudy, windy.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah, the weather was so nice like a week ago, and now it's just like not nice. I was lucky though, because I had to pick up stock from Dallas, and we had this like little window on Monday and Tuesday of nice weather, so I managed to fly from here up there. It was still a little touch and go. It was like, what was the wind? It was like 170 at like 17 gusting to 26 knots or something like that. So it got pretty exciting coming in to land at Hooks back home.
Crosswind?
It was almost in line with the runway, but it was super gusty. So we were getting tossed around pretty good.
Off topic, have you watched Jimmy's World or Rebuild Rescue, Bob?
Yes, I have.
They're pretty good. I'm enjoying those.
I don't know where that guy gets the money to do what he does.
Well, and now he's selling everything
Yep.
except for the 310.
But what's he buying? I never saw. He was selling all of them to buy something.
He's buying a MiG-15 and a T6 Texan.
What the hell is he gonna do with that? Just looking at it probably costs $1,500 every time he looks at it.
You know, I'm thinking he hasn't said the price, but I'm betting it could be had. Both planes could probably be had for $250, maybe $350.
Yeah, but it's like an exotic car. It's not so much buying it. Like almost anybody can afford to buy an exotic car,
Oh,
but
yeah.
not everybody can afford to own one, if that makes sense.
Yep.
When you're talking about like $10,000 oil changes and
It's called total cost of ownership,
total cost of
Right.
ownership.
TCO.
Mm-hmm.
Could always
Yeah.
sell
Am
it
I
to the
late
Ukraine.
or early? By the way,
What's
I
that?
thought this was- am I late or early? I
You
thought it
are
was
early by 10 minutes.
Okay. All right. I seem to have had a thing with time zones lately, right, Bob? So, how is everybody?
Awesome.
Okay.
Good here.
I have to
Right.
get up at like 3 o'clock tomorrow morning to catch a flight down to Florida to meet my wife. We're seeing some old friends there this weekend. Been a while since I've done the commercial aircraft thing.
How long does it take you to fly to Florida, and how much does it cost to go there and back?
It was, I think $1,000 in fuel, and it was 7.5 hours flying.
Oh, and you're a puddle jumper.
Yeah.
Commercial, it's what, an hour?
No, it's a little more than that. It's like 3 or 3.5 direct, I think, on United.
Oh.
It doesn't usually make much sense to take my plane anywhere if it's just me. It starts making a lot more sense if there's like 2 or 3 of us.
Hmm.
And there's this like sweet spot for time too. Like pretty well anything within, say, like, I'm gonna say so point in case my son goes to school up in Iowa, in Ames, just north of Des Moines. It takes the same amount of time for me to fly there as it does for him to fly commercial.
But you get to log hours though.
I get to log hours, well, and I can do it whenever I want to, right? And there's no security, and there's no, there's none of that going on. But anything further, and then it's, yeah, definitely advantage commercial.
What will your plane true out at, Bob?
At 65% throttle, 135 knots.
Okay.
On the way up to Dallas, we had a nice tailwind. We were doing like 175 over the ground, so that was nice.
Was it smooth or bumpy? Was it smooth or bumpy?
Smooth.
Oh, that's
beautiful.
awesome. You like those tailwinds?
But until we had to turn around and come back, and we were doing 100.
Yeah. One of the reasons I built an airplane is because I couldn't afford the $2,000 to $3,000 a year to have somebody inspect it, and so I do it myself, and I do about 150 true.
There you go.
It's comfortable for the two of us. I can do Dallas. I can do from Salt Lake to Dallas with one fuel stop and about 7.5, depending on the winds.
Mm-hmm.
So
So I had an exciting test of the big 96 scale Ohio I've been building for a customer. So it's got a shear line. It's a shear line hull with a shear line ballast system in it. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, the shear line system uses a windshield washer pump to pump water into a sealed ballast tank. And it uses a servo to open a rubber hose and then to kink it shut so that it doesn't backflow. It's nice and simple. Maybe not the most efficient system, but it is pretty high pressure. Those little windshield washer pumps, they put out a pretty tremendous amount of pressure. I was really impressed. But it was brand new. It was never used. The silicone, brand new silicone hose was on a brand new nipple inside. We trimmed the boat out in the pool and it was flowing perfectly. We kicked the pump on, and then all of a sudden everything started going crazy. And so what ended up happening, we found out in hindsight, the high pressure pump pressured up the ballast system and blew the hose off the nipple and filled up both the forward and aft sections completely up to the top with water. Yeah, pretty awesome.
The
Lessons
Syncomatic.
learned.
What's that?
The Syncomatic.
Yep.
Lessons learned.
The lesson was learned. So we revised the nipple apparatus.
Oh, it is?
That's what makes this fun.
You know, the cool thing about it was we got it opened and dried out immediately. We let it dry for 2 days. We turned it on. Everything was functioning perfectly. The receiver, the failsafe, the servos, everything.
Hey, Bob, I got a question.
Uh-huh.
That Deep Sea Wonder servo that you had underwater for a couple of days,
For a week. Yep.
have you opened it up yet?
No, I have not opened it up.
Coward?
Yeah,
Coward?
that's what you got to do. You got to see if there's any water ingress.
Okay.
Drop the other shoe, Bob.
All right. I can do a follow-up video. I'll
And you
find
can
it.
rub my nose in it if it's dry.
Okay, I will.
I will pay to see that.
You can go
Okay.
fuck yourself. And
I want to hear more about the slippery nipple.
You have to pay for that. That's on my other website.
So are we starting the meeting officially now?
Officially in 3 minutes.
Okay.
you Canadians have to wait an hour.
Well, yeah, we're on Northern time.
Polar bear time.
Yeah. Not
How you
that
doing,
far
Rick?
from-
Hey,
Not
Rick, you
that
looking
far.
pretty good. How much weight have you lost?
in total,
Yeah.
60.
All right.
Good for
Congrats.
you.
Bravo Zulu.
Thank you. No, I've doubled my swim time up to an hour and a half in the pool 4 days a week. So
Good for you.
beating the crap out of it.
Good for you. All right, man.
Is that nice water?
80, 81. That's what they keep the rec center at.
Hey, you're in the water. That's what counts.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, keep it moving.
Good man.
When I get tired, I just do a few rest strokes, a few lengths of breast side, and then tread water for, 15, 20 minutes, and then do some more crawl.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just keep going.
Well, I don't want this to sound weird, but you're looking a lot better.
Thank you. I got to go in for surgery next week, though.
What's
A
up?
little biopsy thing going on, so see what happens there.
Roger rock.
Yeah, thank you. That'll keep me out for a week or two.
Yeah. Do what you got to do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You still set the bench and build.
Yeah. Ken, you look like shit. Get some sleep.
I just found out today that I have AFib.
Congratulations.
Wonderful, huh?
What are you going to do about it?
I don't know. There's some Eliquis and some other an atrial ablation or something like that.
Yeah, they're gonna do an ablation on you.
Yeah.
I had 3, and I wound up with a defibrillator anyway. But do what the doc says, take your medicine, all that shit.
Yep.
Okay. Goddamn, we're all getting old.
How do you stop that?
You don't want to stop that.
You don't want to stop it. You won't be doing submarines.
Point well made. Well, goddamn, are we gonna talk submarines or something?
Probably.
Well,
Minute.
You want? Does anybody want to see my latest option?
Yeah.
Is it in the water? Is that the option?
It went
it
in
working?
the water last.
Did you
last
put it in
year,
the water?
In the test tank, it went in. Not recently.
Yeah.
Last fall. I'm turning everything on.
What's that? Seaview?
Yeah.
Oh, Ray's Seaview or your
What's
Seaview
the-
now?
So what is
Well-
the option? Go-go dances?
It's raised sea view plus 20 inches.
Okay.
You've lengthened it?
I made it scale. Yes.
Yeah,
All
when Ray did his, he was just swapping measurements off the TV screen. That's how old that thing was.
And then he shortened it to fit in his car.
So he didn't have Narowski's blueprints.
Yeah, I think he did. No, he did it all from the screen.
No,
From the
I'll
TV.
screen- Yeah, that came way after Ray had built that thing.
Yeah. Ray did it
Narowski
all.
did the lofting over here.
Well, if you can see the back of my, that's the deck. And I'm always worried about this thing sinking and not finding it. So I put a buoy in it.
Oh, man, nice.
What, did it just catapult something? What just
No.
happened?
No, it won't come out because it's it floats. So
Oh,
when
that's
it
the
floats-
door. Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, there's a magnetic switch, and there's a strobe that blinks SOS when it's comes to the surface, and it's tethered. So
I think this is just my thought. I think you got it in your head that you're going to keep working on this for like forever because you've got some sort of psychological aversion to
Yeah.
putting it in the water.
no, actually, I'm tying up all the wires and everything. Has anybody heard of this before? Now I must have dripped some super glue on the silicone wires. Now I don't know how long it was there, but I moved the wires. They actually tore away from the wire. The metal part of the wire, like it was nothing.
Yep. Silicone is really soft. And hey, here's a tip for people if you want a quick way to strip silicone wires. So Jason taught me this because apparently he works in an auto store in doing car installs. If you take a lighter and heat up the end, you can just grab the end and pull it right off. You don't need to like go around with your snips and pull it off or use a wire stripper. You just heat it up and thump, off with your fingernail. There you go. But
Hey,
anyhow,
Bob, I received that radio yesterday. The box looked like a truck ran over it.
I've been having issues with all kinds of shipping companies lately.
Yeah.
The radio was fine. The radio was fine. Not a mark on it. But the box, when I saw it, I said, oh my God, I'm going to kill somebody. But everything was good.
Well, you just recently had a thread started about some damage people have been incurring.
R class, that was that beautiful R class I just finished up.
Oh,
Yep. I mean, fortunately, it was primarily cosmetic damage. There was nothing functional that was blown out, but and customers being really good about just fixing it.
well, good
But
for him.
I mean, it was a 3/8 plywood crate,
Yeah.
and he said it came back and it was sheared and there was holes punched in it, and like, I just put a post up in the forums on that there's that one guy, I think it was Tom, was saying, well, you need to get a
Fine art.
company, a fine art shipping company. I've used them. And if you want to pay $2,000 to $3,000 to ship your submarine, absolutely. But at the end of the day, they're still shipping it on a trucking line. They don't have private, fine art truck lines. They just put it on a truck and they cross their fingers just like we do. At the end of the day, if those truckers or the shipping companies feel like smashing it, it'll be smashed. There's nothing that you can do to stop it. So the only surefire way of taking delivery of your boat without any damage is to go and pick it up yourself.
Move 3 hours away from Bob. That's how you do it. That's how it's done.
Yeah.
By the way, you saw that video. I'd like to give a little report on the handling of that 148th Alpha.
Yeah.
And the response. Those of you who saw the video, I'm super impressed with this, with Dwayne's boat and how it handled in the water. I mean, it was very responsive. I was very surprised how well it turned. Okay, and that's because he uses the full throw lower rudder, so it had good response on the surface. All the surface runners were a gaggle over this thing. That prop you made, I'll tell you a little bit about it. It is the shape of the blades, right? Naturally, because you had it 3D printed, and it's very difficult to model that the suction back and all the proper form of the individual blades. So you have the flat blade that's just basically curved properly. So you have a flat leading edge and a flat, just like a solid.
It's not tapered. Yeah.
It's not tapered. It's not a true airfoil.
Yeah.
Right, Dave? You need that true airfoil.
Yeah.
And I noticed, and here's just a quick report. I know it's difficult to model that throughout the suite in a 3D model CAD. I wouldn't want to do it. I wouldn't begin to imagine how you model that because it's such bizarre geometry going on there. But what it does is obviously makes the prop less efficient. And so you see a lot of turbulence on the surface back there. You see a lot of kicking up and bubbling and stuff as compared to the skipjack, which has a proper. And plus, I did notice the battery. I got about an hour's run time. So it's definitely not as efficient. But that doesn't say she didn't move through the water when you kicked in the goose. It's a 650 kilovolt K, 650K motor at 12 volt.
Mm-hmm.
And it's rated at 520 watts. Okay. I remember Johann Sauer going, I got the 120 watts on both shafts. I was turning about 300 or 400 on that single screw at speed. And she moved.
Where did you post the video, Ed?
Right now it's on Facebook. I have several separate videos I'm going to put together, but other than being a little light at the moment, that Alpha performed flawlessly. I worked all the bugs out of that cylinder. I have no leaks. It's dry as a bone. Everything is working. She's a keeper. I was very
The bow
impressed.
planes retract?
No,
No, not yet.
no, not yet. I got
But they are
16 other
functional.
boats to work on. The bow planes can wait.
They're
So
functional.
I'd be interested in Dave chiming in on this. So, prop design, obviously there's like people who go to school like specifically for this, and there's probably like 18 textbooks worth of information that you would need to know in order to know everything. But the pairing of, like torque and RPM and blade conformity and pitch and all of that stuff, there's like magic numbers, right, that all need to add up for proper efficiency. If I remember correctly, that prop that I made for you, it's got a pretty aggressive pitch to it. If I remember, that probably has more to do with it than, even blade shape, because
Right.
you know, like my Nautilus has a sledgehammer prop, just flat, right, with a you know, and that'll get up and move a Nautilus. So it's probably more about the pitch and the RPM and the torque versus maybe the blade shape. So
Yeah, I was talking to Ray Mason when he came out with his Seaview, you know, because I knew him way back when it first, and he said the best propeller that he managed to get was a disc that he cut and just twisted the blades, and that was the best performance he got, was from that. Just taking the 4 blades and just twisting them on a disc.
There's guys out there on the internet have taken and made little turbine engines by doing exactly that, putting fuel to it and making it jet. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Those are flamethrowers. They're
Yeah.
not producing, any usable thrust.
No, and they're miniature, little tiny things.
Yeah,
But it's fun in the concept.
yeah, I know. He makes a lot of tin cans.
Hey, Eddie, is your buddy gonna pick up that other Proteus hull?
Oh, I don't know. He's not on. No, I don't think so. That's Steve O'Connell. I said, hey, are you interested in it? And he's not. So if anybody is interested, there is a one of Rick's hulls available. I don't know the price or anything. It's on that other Facebook page if anybody is interested.
yeah, Matt hooked me up with the guy who's selling all of that stuff. He was originally, there was like a couple DeBoer 48 scale skipjack hulls and some really old D&E cylinders and that Proteus and a bunch of stuff. Initially, he wanted $10,000 for it, and I almost choked on my coffee when he read the text. And he's like, "Oh, but he'll take 6." I'm like, you know, good luck. I'm not interested.
Yeah, he's gonna have a dose of reality there.
Well, and in his defense, I think if I understand it correctly, it's an estate sale, and I think he's trying to get, you know, the maximum dollars for the family from the gentleman that passed. So
Where you at
First
in
off,
yours?
If we could backtrack a little bit about marine propellers, there are some tried and true characteristics which apply to us. If you want to write this down, fine. If not,
It's on the video.
all right.
And we're recording it.
Okay. Your propeller area, and that is the total area of the blades, regardless of number. And this is
70%. I spoiled it.
that's a disc. All right. Your total blade developed area, not what you see, but what is really there. It's a difference between projected and developed, right? Look it up. Your developed blade area should be no more than 70% of the disc, less the hub. That's a good round number to start with as far as total blade area. As far as pitch and diameter, keep in mind that pitch is a linear measurement. It's not an angular measurement. It's the measurement of the distance a propeller will travel axially in one revolution in a non-slip medium. That's pitch. As a practical matter, a propeller, to produce any thrust, has to have slippage. In other words, it has to have an angle of attack that's more than 0. Therefore, the real pitch of a propeller, the distance it travels axially, is always less than the ideal pitch. But we're talking ideal pitch. The distance the propeller would travel axially in one revolution in a non-slip medium. Okay, that's your basic measurement. And I found that if you take the diameter of the propeller, which is driven by scale, the subject's criteria for that scale, that size model, your propeller is X diameter. That will be the number of your pitch. In other words, pitch equals diameter. So with that relationship in mind, and with the rule of keeping developed blade area within 65% of the disc, less the hub, you now have the fundamentals of propeller design. Yes, it's ideal to have the foil section, but it's not critical to performance. It enhances performance, but not enough to really matter.
So just to clarify, Dave, so you're saying a propeller of 70 millimeters diameter should, in theory, for optimal-ish performance, have a pitch of 70 millimeters.
Well, I don't talk metric, and I refuse to. Yes. You're
Okay.
correct. It's a
And-
one-to-one.
And Dave explained this to me, this idea of constant pitch, and he talked about it but for those of you guys that this went over your head because he was using technical terms, which I love because I got like an engineering brain. But for those of you that didn't, the idea is the closer to the center of the propeller you go, the less distance it would be if it was at a set pitch or a set angle. And so you need to increase the angle closer to the hub and decrease it further away from the hub in order to get a constant pitch. So that is the relationship of the distance from the center of the hub and the angle in relation to the longitudinal axis of the hub. So if you take a look at any high efficiency propeller, they got a really steep angle near the base and then a really shallow angle near the tip. So that's the idea behind these.
And what the resultant is a helical twist of constant rate from root or center to tip. You have a helical twist of the blade. And this is to account for the speed at that radius, at any radius point along the span of the blade. That blade is traveling at a different velocity. Velocity increases as you progress towards the tip. And that's why you have that twist, is to get you the same amount or same angle of attack for that particular pitch. And nomenclature is important too, and it's been misused. Constant pitch describes a propeller that does not change physically the angle of the blades. It's a solid propeller. A constant pitch describes the helical twist that produces the same pitch, no matter the radius point you check, right? That's a constant pitch propeller. Variable pitch, again, is a solid propeller. The blade doesn't turn, but that helical twist has been altered along the span to account for variances in velocity that the propeller sees. The variance is a consequence of hull flow or protuberances ahead of the propeller or other phenomenon that would introduce into the propeller disc water flow of different velocities. So the propeller compensates physically, or has been designed to physically attune itself for the hull that it's attached to. The only time you're talking about a propeller where you can physically move the blades is, the term is controllable pitch. So when you say variable pitch, no, you're not moving the blades. Variable pitch describes a specific propeller engineered for a specific hull.
For those of you who are interested, I was recently shared a video on YouTube, Submarine Screws and Pump Jets by Covert Shores. It's actually pretty cool. It goes into a little bit of the different types of propellers, the typical use in submarines. It goes into a little bit of pump jet stuff, which is super interesting. It's not really long, it's 20 minutes. Certainly worth a look if you guys are interested at all in propeller information.
Mr. Sutton puts out some pretty interesting stuff.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, I worked through it. It was super interesting. There was a lot of stuff there that I had no idea about. So Highly recommended. Submarine Screws and Pump Jets by Covert Shores. HICaptain.com.
I saw
Two
that
other,
banner today,
two other,
matter of fact.
I think you
two
like
other,
that, Bob.
two other things I'd like to mention on that Alpha real quick regarding propeller. She did have great low speed performance, and much to my surprise, she back for close order maneuvering, and much to my, and she had a bit of a propeller walk,
Oh yeah.
but you can use that in docking if you know what you're doing. And she actually had some maneuverability in reverse.
Really?
And
Okay,
I guess,
it's pushing against your
yeah.
filter.
So I was using right thrust and rudder combinations. I'm able to get her alongside a bulkhead without really smashing into it. Oh, and I wouldn't say parallel parking, but if you're tweaking and you know what you're doing and you think ahead, and maybe a little help from a gust of wind, you can get it. It was very interesting, but I do think she needs a gear reduction because I do have that motor only set at 50%. I wouldn't
yeah.
want to set up high. So and I guess again it's a brushless motor, but I still like that rule of thumb. What is it, Dave? The diameter of the motor versus the diameter of the prop.
Yeah, that's rule of thumb for brushed motors.
Brushed
yeah.
For
motors.
brush motors, but I don't know. I'm still a fan of gear reduction, especially with these larger boats. You know, you don't want to have you can have a big honking brushless motor on there, but they're still jerky at that very low throttle end.
Well, the big issue I find is it's really hard to find really high quality, low kilovolt motors. You know,
Yeah.
they're all designed for drones when you're spinning at like 15,000 RPM. You know, nothing that would be useful for us. Like realistically, we want like 300 or 400
Yeah.
kilovolt motors, right? So that we can get 3, 4, 5,000 RPM out of the propeller, but they're just almost impossible to find. So yeah, that idea of gear reduction is super solid.
Something for a rock crawler or something.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you do find those low kilovolt motors for those rock crawlers, they're like $150 for a stupid motor.
Yeah.
It's been my experience that motors has never been a big issue in submarines. We've always had plenty of kick-ass brushed motors, but then again, I'm caveman.
I love brushed motors. Yeah.
You know, I love on the skipjack. I love seeing I could turn the blade like that.
Yeah.
With that big Redmond HVAC blower motor, and that thing just.
I tell you, I got. Go ahead, Dave.
I was just gonna say I really enjoy docking and that type of seamanship as well. That maneuvering close in. So that's kind of why I like that. That's all I was gonna say, Frank. You got the floor.
I was gonna originally when I did the Sea View. I don't know if any of you did ducted fans when you're in airplanes, but there was this guy Bob Kress who kind of like pioneered a lot of that, and he was a Grummanite, and I carved his original blades for his ducted fans. So I thought I could use one of those in a tube, but you can see how steep the blades are, like Dave was talking about. And what happened was the water was going more sideways than back.
Yeah.
So what I did was I took a lot of the blade off, and this sucker you had to hold with two hands when it was moving. But I didn't like the fact that it was a brushed motor and it was all cobbed and everything, but it did work. I wound up with these. They could get online.
You get them on eBay for $28.
They work really great, and you can get counter rotating, and they really pump out water because I've tried this in the test tank, and they really push along. And in reverse, that thing just backs right up.
So I have those exact same ones, I think. And the fascinating thing about this, I had a customer stop into my shop and he needed help wiring them up. He was mounting them to his kayak to propel his kayak. But two of them, he said, would push it along really, really well. So that's how much thrust those little things are putting out.
The Sea-View is going to move right along. I'm hoping. No, but it did in the test tank, but it only moved about 2 feet. But it really crossed that 2 feet quick.
And you know what I'm going to be fascinated about is the astounding hydrodynamics of the fictional Sea-View hull and what happens when you get any appreciable speed on that boat. I'm not dissing your boat. I'm just saying that design, you know, it was never designed to be real, so it's going to do weird ass things.
Is it going to dive?
Yes, it's going to dive and dive and dive and dive.
That's why I have the fins, the manta rays on the tips.
Non-canon.
I think they call it Irwin Allen's Revenge.
Oh yeah.
Hey, Steve Hodges, I see you out there.
Uh-oh.
What KV motor do you have in your thresher?
Heck if I know. It's a brushless 50 amp setup. It's the G2 Hydra 50 from Mamtronics.
And how do you, it looked like you ran pretty good. That, you know, you had nice speed. You had a good low end speed. Or do you just rock it along?
No, I keep it limited on the end throws. If I didn't, it'd just be a torpedo. But you know, it suffers on the low end, like you talk about. So you just kind of blip it along. You know, it's not a big deal. Kind of easy going to get there.
Yeah,
so you have no idea.
That's really interesting, and it's an interesting discussion, or would be an interesting discussion to have, because one of the biggest questions I get from people when they're looking to buy a sub or when they buy like an RTR sub is how long of a runtime can I expect? And it is so highly dependent on how aggressive your left thumb is, or in Ed's case, your twisty dialy 2-finger weird ass setup that you used.
It's an enunciator. Stand a dive plane watch. You'll know what I have.
I understand the reasoning is still weird, but it's fine. So at any rate, what I'm saying is, you know, the current draw that you're going to see, you know, the difference between third throttle and 2/3 throttle is, you know, it's a lot more. So it depends on how you run your boats. You know, like Nathan driving that Japanese boat, he'd probably blow through a battery in 20 minutes. But you know, someone like Eddie, who's probably running at 25% throttle for an hour, could go for 6 hours. And not only because he's probably got 85 amps of battery aboard, but because that's just the current draw.
Yeah, I measured it. Where the skipjack does 1 amp at my normal throttle, and I got total of 14 amp hours. So you figure derated to 50%. I get bored after 4.5, 5 hours.
Like that. And that's the other thing that affects it as well is what sort of ballast system you're running. So I have a thread on the forums talking about gas ballast systems, and people were trying to promote this idea of air compressor ballast system. So you surface, compress the air into a chamber, dive, blow ballast, go up, recharge your tanks, go down. You know, those, you know, any pump style system is going to be exceptionally power hungry. It doesn't matter if it's a water pump or an air pump. You know, all of them they're moving, especially a pressurized one. So like the OTW system, when you're pumping water into a sealed container, it's fighting, not only pumping the water, but fighting against air pressure to compress all of that. So they're very power hungry systems, as opposed to something like a gas system that is literally using milliamps to blow ballast, right? The servo's twitching and poof, up you go. The difference being is you're using stored, what would that be? It's not chemical energy, it would be kinetic
Potential.
energy, potential energy in the liquid gas. You're loading that up ashore as opposed to storing it in a battery aboard the boat. So it's
Yeah,
just
Ed did a good presentation on that.
who did? Ed did a presentation?
Well, the write-up.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but nobody wants to use Freon. Leave that to Ed.
We're
Leave
on,
all the Freon for Ed.
we're on to you. We're gonna buy it like Elon Musk buying Twitter.
2 years ago, it was $4 a can. Now it's up to $8.
Yeah.
And I know probably inflation. I don't think it's the 30 or 40 RC Submariners have driven it up that much yet.
Yeah.
I'm seeing $6 a can in my area.
They,
Yeah, I got it on Amazon for $6.
I've got adapters in stock now too for anyone interested.
For the Freon?
For the Freon, yeah.
Good. I can use one.
I can put
$8
them
a
on.
can. I have not seen any crazing or cracking on any of the material. And really, what do we give, a burst for a second or two? We're not going to experience a frozen pipe situation clogging up.
Well, yeah, I would say the only exception to that rule would be a fail-safe, because typically if you program it, it'll blow for 5 seconds or 6 seconds or 8 seconds, whatever you set it up for, right?
Well, the nice thing about putting a restrictor in the line is it'll freeze at the restrictor.
Hey, Dave, how do you restrict a line? You just pinch a brass pipe?
That's it. I crimp it.
Do you have I guess what I'm looking for is, do you have a consistent minor width that you crimp it to?
Ellie and I would be there at 3 in the morning doing these things. What do you think? I don't know. I think we were
Small.
If I can suck on that thing and get any air at all, that's good. That's nice and tight.
Okay.
Not much. I was thinking about a flow meter and little balls and little tapered. Fuck that. Just
pinch it off.
The restrictors are good, because those, depending, like the old sub drivers are okay, but like the new MSDs, they didn't really have a way that secured the ballast ends on. So if you didn't restrict the gas ballast flow, and if the holes were not big enough to allow the water to evacuate fast enough, you would literally blow the ends of the ballast tank off. You could. I haven't heard of it happening, but it would feasibly be possible.
Well, one of the features of my emergency gas ballast system is that I don't have a safety valve. My safety valve is the hose itself, which has a burst pressure of 400 PSI, but that's all downstream of the restrictor. So again, I'm not going to be at risk of overpressurizing and blowing the hull apart, but Bob's observation is well taken. Because in the early days, I didn't have any restrictors, and I did split a hull once when it went off.
Yeah.
Lesson learned.
The early days of RC, submarine ingenuity and innovation, it would have been so exciting. So exciting.
I still have these though, in spite of that.
Dave,
really,
when you did those,
go ahead.
Dave, when you made those restrictors, that was to prevent, well, you said they would freeze at that point.
That's right.
Now, did you put that in the water so it would thaw out faster?
No, I'm just made an observation that some people were concerned when Ed did that write-up on the different propellant chemistries. He was listing everything, freeze points, expansion ratios, all good stuff. And somebody made an observation about one, the Freon had a propensity to freeze over the other agents. Well, that's fair enough. If it's in the water and it freezes, in no time at all, it's gonna unfreeze. So let's say your boat is stuck on the bottom, it's fail-safe, it started to blow, froze up and stopped. Well, eventually, ambient temperature is gonna unfreeze the plug and it's gonna blow again. So if you're patient, the boat's coming up.
Yeah, no, I thought maybe you did that and put that intentionally in the water so that it would thaw quicker.
No. The restriction is there just to limit the flow of the gas. So I don't
Okay.
overpressurize. Remember, our submarine hulls are just underwater fairings, which are free floating. But if you overpressurize, you literally blow the submarine apart. And restrictors there to prevent overpressurization.
Okay.
And really, it's not so much a point if you've got, adequate or large, holes in the ballast tank, enough to allow that water to evacuate quickly. If they're too small, then it would overpressurize inside. But, like on my sub drivers, I think I'm drilling like 1.5 holes in the bottom of the ballast tank, which also conveniently allows you to do surgery through the ballast tank as opposed to having to dismantle everything if you want to.
Hemostats are your friend.
Yes, exactly. I keep forgetting about them and Jason keeps fishing them out for all these various tasks. I'm like, oh, that's a great idea.
Instead of holes in the bottom of the ballast tank, why couldn't you run just a big slot? I'm just curious.
I've done that.
You could. It's structural. A circular hole is intrinsically more stable or strong shape than a slot. And it was an interesting observation from a customer, Dave. He has one of your older sub drivers that, how around the safety float valve, almost every single one of them would crack.
Yeah.
It doesn't crack all the way through. It only cracks on the inside, not the outside.
I wonder if it might be a chemical reaction to the copper.
Well, maybe, but the thing is, no, because you use a rubber O-ring, don't you? That goes up on the top and cushions.
RTV.
But that nick, the Schrader valve is either it's plated or it is brass, which is copper bearing. And that's direct contact with the neck.
It'll be interesting to see, how my sub drivers hold up because they're polycarbonate as well. But I don't drill holes for vents or anything like that. But I do in the bottom, those big 1.5 holes, and then also I have bolts that secure the bulkheads on. So it'll be interesting to see how those hold up over time.
I'd be interested to know.
I tell you I had to do a project one time, and it was kind of like a yo-yo, or I won't even go into it, but it had to be crystal clear. So I turned this thing on a lathe and made it crystal clear because it had a ratchet device on the inside. So I wanted to wipe it, and I wiped it mistakenly with alcohol. It instantly crazed, and something happened to my ballast tank too. When I was first experimenting, and I didn't, because this is my first sub, some liquid propellant from the airbrush things came out as a liquid and touched the ballast tank, and it instantly crazed in that spot too.
What?
So it had nothing to do with brass or whatever. It was the chemical itself. And at first I thought it was the super coldness of the propellant, but it does it with alcohol too.
I remember when that happened, Frank.
Food for thought.
When that first one cracked.
But alcohol will do it also.
I mean, I've sprayed liquid propellant all over myself and cylinders and bulkheads, and I've never seen them craze or crack.
Oh my God, it was instant.
Was it testers?
No, it was the big round can. Hold on.
It's always the big brown can.
It was Badger. The company is Badger.
Okay,
Yeah, I've used
Yeah.
Badger before.
That's Propel.
The same thing, yeah, Propel.
well, you got Pache, you have testers. There's at least 4 brands.
Yeah,
And
the
it's-
Badger seems to have higher pressure.
Butane in that?
Butane, methane. Again, I refer everybody to read Ed's write-up. He had it all down pat.
Yeah, I did, Ed.
I think that was I think, are you sure you know what that material was? Was that acrylic or was it definitely polycarbonate or?
No, it was acrylic. It was
Yeah.
plexi- it
Oh,
was
that's
plexi-
it. That's answering it,
acrylic.
I think.
Yeah, I switched over to my.
Yeah, that's the answer. It's acrylic.
Yeah.
Acrylic will crack, I believe. That's why remember in the old days, Dave, the Rich Kohlbrecker, he shied away from it because he had the home built rectangular tank, okay, with the clear cover, and that cracked because it was
Yeah.
acrylic and he used a Freon.
And if you want to use acrylic, you want cast acrylic.
Right.
Not what's the other process?
Extruder.
CA kicker will crack it too.
Yeah, it's very finicky, and if you want to preserve it a little bit, when you drill the holes, if you can polish the edges, it helps out a lot.
Yeah. Oh,
Talking about extruded, Dave?
extruded, thank you, yes. Extruded is just asking for it. If you can get the cast stuff, it doesn't have as
Internal
many,
stresses.
yes, yeah. The stresses are caused in the extrusion process because of the quick temperature changes from the die to the conveyor belt. And it comes preloaded, ready to go off on you.
Yeah,
Whereas
I bought
the cast stuff is more stable.
Yeah, I bought PVC, clear PVC. I'm gonna play with that a little bit.
Yeah,
Because
that'd
that
be
seems
good.
It's pretty good stuff.
That'd be good.
that seems pretty tough.
Yeah, I've used it.
What sizes is that available in?
I got 4
I think
inch.
it's limited. I think it's
Yeah.
limited in sizes, right?
You know what they use it for? The dust collecting systems. So
Yeah.
it's about 4 inches.
Yeah.
What does it cost?
It's cheap because it's for these dust collecting systems that you do for sawdust.
Yeah.
You know, you want
PVC
to
is
yeah.
cheap.
If Frank,
Yeah.
tell everyone how to polish the holes. How you go about polishing the holes after you've drilled them.
Well, after you drill it, you have to wet sand it as much as you can till you get it nice and smooth. And you know, with 180 or something like that.
Okay,
then
yeah,
you-
the details.
Right. And then you get a buffing wheel on the Dremel and you charge it with those compounds, those buffs. And let's see if I have one here. I mean, usually Dremel comes with these little tubs and they have the rubbing compound in them. And it's usually like a rouge, a red color.
Yeah.
And then you finish it with a white and it'll be like a piece of glass when you're done.
So you bevel the edges too, right, guys? You bevel. You not only okay. See, Dave's holding up some display thing, but the idea is not only to polish the inside surface, but you
The
want to
edges.
bevel that corner. You want to break all sharp edges.
Now, just to show you how finicky it is, I worked in a place and we did Corian countertops. Now, the good Corian countertops were all acrylic. And the cheaper you got, they became polyester. And in between was a mixture of the two. Now, when you worked with Corian, which was 100% acrylic, you could not use any kind of saw to cut the acrylic because it sets up all these fractures in it. You had to use a router. So when you done cutting, it was already polished for you. And every corner had to be round. It could not be a pointy corner because the saw would actually set up fissures that if you moved it, it would just crack on the spot. So that's acrylic is acrylic, whether it's corian or a tube. So that's why the polishing helps out a lot.
Okay,
Especially
I
when
got
you drill through.
another question for the general builders though. And of course, sorry, Dave, how do you cut your Lexan tubes to size for everybody to know? What's your preferred method, Dave or Bob, or hand saw, chop saw,
Chop saw.
lightsaber?
If I had a lightsaber, that'd be awesome. But I just use a chop saw just because it creates a perfectly perpendicular cut.
What blade? A plywood blade, a
Fine.
Abrasive blade.
an abrasive blade.
You
See, you guys came here to learn.
I use a
I
fine tooth blade and it works fine too.
Now, if I can inject, I got a little stymied there in my terms. You have the cast forms of Lexan or acrylic, and you have the extruded. Now, the extruded is what we use because it's cheap and it's available. And if you get the cast, it's prohibitively expensive and not available in the sizes you're going to want. So a couple of weeks ago, I did a little search on how you could probably mitigate the cracking problem, particularly in Lexan. And I found that some people actually anneal their Lexan, and that means applying heat. And what it does, it takes this rather stressed out crystal, and the analogy is to metal. It's the same thing. You have a crystalline structure which is under stress as a consequence of the manufacturing process. And what you want to do is relieve the stress, rearrange the crystal structure to a more stable configuration. And you do that by the application of heat. Now, the problem I always had with Lexan was this cracking near the screws, and as Bob pointed out, particularly around where the Schrader valve in the emergency balance blow bottle penetrates the Lexan cylinder. So I made 2 test articles. This is 2-inch cylinder, and it's Lexan. See if I can get this right. Now, they're identical in form. One has been annealed to 240 degrees. The other is not. And I don't know if my camera is going to capture this, but this one is cracked. Or rather, no, this is the annealed one. It's not cracked. And the stock one is cracked. Maybe you can see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we see the crack.
So you always want to do a double blind. So that's why I made 2 identical items. One that was annealed and one that was not. The one, and these both have been sitting here at my workstation for a couple of weeks. And I just noticed it today that indeed I have cracks in the stock cylinder, but no cracks in the annealed. Now
Dave, you're not talking about flame polishing, are you?
No.
Okay.
What I do, the heating protocol that they recommend is days. I'm not that kind of guy, so mine was hours. So I preheated the oven to 240, and then I put in the test article. And after turning the oven off, so it dropped in temperature from 240 over a period of 6 hours to room temperature, and I consider that annealed. Well, for this test, because these 2 pieces were drawn from the same length of Lexan tube, one is now cracked, the other is not. So that's only a test of 1 article, but to me, that's conclusive. If I was still in business, I would be annealing my cylinders, but I'm passing on this little nugget for those of you, Bob, who are still producing these things. So annealing does have a place. So Look
Ooh.
up on the internet, Bob, you can get the correct annealing protocols down, and then you make the appropriate investments, and maybe this will serve you well.
Yeah, yeah,
But-
that's great to know.
Hey, Bob, done right. I see a pizza oven in the shop that can serve double duty.
There you go. Except aren't those the pizza ovens, aren't they usually like 1,000 degrees?
Yeah, 450.
I-
550.
My first attempt was a bubbling puddle of plastic at the bottom of my oven.
I bet. Thank you, Dave, for that sacrifice for science.
Glad to serve.
Mm-mm.
So the bottom line is you should heat and polish your hole.
You're bad.
Thank you, Rick
video for
Disney.
which
He'll
is
be
on
here
my
all
They
day.
allow you across the border. You're so
Goddamn
bad.
Canadians.
It's all that Molson's.
Nothing wrong with Molson's. I happen to like Molson's.
What a crazy crew. God help us.
If I can take a moment, I'd like to send out a big shout out to Ed. I had an opportunity to go to Dallas and spend some time with my daughter, my granddaughter, and Ed was gracious enough to invite me to his home. We spent a day and a half doing the electronics on my watertight cylinder. Ed was beat to death. He was ready for me to go away, but it was a fun time. Ed was a perfect host. Coffee in the morning, awesome. And we tested out all the electronics, and I have replaced that controller for the ballast tank. I got the new one. It's in, it works. And Ed and I made a short video. It's about 4.5 minutes long. I posted it on YouTube. Anybody wants to see it, it's first RC submarine WTC fit out. And I can send that to you guys if you're interested. But it was pretty cool. And thanks, Ed.
Well, the only hard part was extending leads on like 5 different servos for this.
Yeah.
What is that? Like a 4-foot long WTC
Exactly.
he's got in this thing.
Yeah, 4 foot.
So I'm there stripping ends back and forth, and we're having a good old time making 3-foot extension leads. Yeah, we had a good time.
Yeah. And then
That's what it's all about.
And then the next Sunday I got the opportunity to go out with him and Vaughn, and they floated the Upholder and Ed's skipjack, the Shark. Anyway, had a great time. Thanks, Ed. And thanks, Vaughn.
I didn't do anything. Thanks for inviting me over.
Hey, man, shop is open to everybody. The more the merrier.
Ed's bed and breakfast.
Hey, Bob, I just sent you some files. You can try testing out tomorrow. It's you should have 3 different emails with the different files for it.
I'm looking at it right now. I'm totally ignoring everybody and goofing around with it. Just
Still have the other sales to do for it. That's just one of them. But that's the basic parts if you want to start playing with them.
Gotcha. So this pertains to our universal starter submarine I teased everybody with last DiveTribe. So Randy has got the looks like the preliminary files are all ready to go, which is pretty awesome.
Yeah, those are just all the parts, and then they can come apart. The bigger one, sorry guys for you can't see this stuff. The bigger one is
There it is.
yeah. The top deck is attached to that one. The one behind it, it's no deck on it. And then there's also at the very back is a bow for you can put a camera in it. That's kind of the intention of those 3. Well, yeah. So that's the one where the deck's attached to it. Yeah, that would be the camera. So you could mount a camera on the bow.
So the idea behind this is it's like ultimately modular. So you could literally just like take all this stuff and make it longer or longer or longer or longer just by adding central hull sections. And
Yeah, you got the two subs, the one with the deck and the one without are overlapping each other there. That's why it kind of looks funny.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
super rough. I'm just playing with it right now. Yeah.
Is that a Typhoon behind you, Ernie?
Dude, I can't tell what's going on. The damn thing closed down. What'd you ask?
Was there a Typhoon behind the other fella? I thought it was Ernie. Maybe I was mistaken.
Talking about mine?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Typhoon I did up for Bob for the, all those are 3D printed. They're all on Bob's website.
Yep.
Has it been in the water yet?
No, that was just a prototype to make sure all the parts fit. None of those have actually been in the water. Those are all just making sure the parts are all fitting together. So it's the Typhoon, the Hunley, the Bori, LA, Alvin, a small Seawolf. One that you guys haven't seen, the Atlantis submarine. I actually worked on that one. And then a bunch more. So I print them up to make sure that the parts will all fit together before I send them off to Bob. So no, none of those ones have seen the water.
Has anybody printed a Typhoon that's actually hit the water yet?
I mean, we've sold, I mean, Randy probably knows as well as I did how many we sold, but I mean, I'm thinking maybe 30 sets of those Typhoon CAD files. So I mean, I'm thinking somebody somewhere's got to be getting awful close by now.
I plan to get mine in the water now that I actually have some stuff to do it with.
There you go.
You give up on the GRP version though, eh, Bob?
You know what? I still have the master patterns. They're all done. They're mounted to the parting board. They're all ready to go. I just need to finish final prep and mold them. I just don't have the time. Yeah. And because in my mind, you know, first order of business, first priority is always customer orders. It's existing product lines and existing customer orders. And so new product lines always take second burner because I don't have obligations and I don't have people waiting, and I just have to stop teasing people with the idea that they're coming, because then they get upset when it takes a long time to come into fruition.
Hey, Randy.
Yes.
You had mentioned at one point in time an LA with a side split, or a Z split, I think.
See,
The current LA has the bayonet style.
Yeah.
And you had mentioned something about maybe changing that whole the separation design on that.
Yep, it's done, and it actually has the 3 different versions to it. Bob actually has the files for that. If you're interested, send me an email and I can do something for you.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got, you know, I just need to post them. They're all done, and typically I print them, but knowing that Randy checks them there, it makes me feel a little bit better about posting them up, you know, kind of as I get them, so to speak. But they're here. Yeah,
Sure.
3 different versions.
Well, I had recently downloaded the Alvin, the Ohio, and the Seawolf. So I picked up all 3 of those. I'm going to be making me a 1/48 scale Jimmy Carter.
Nice.
That'll tie up your printer for a little while.
Yeah, 113.4 inches long or 25 inches long or something like that.
Impressive.
What is it with
Heard
you
you
people
sold
in
your
the
Typhoon,
speedboats?
Steve.
Do what?
I heard you sold your Typhoon.
Yes, I did. I did.
I'll share with you guys the equivalent of measure twice, cut once in the 3D printing world. I started printing up the little midget sub and realized that the scale I was doing it was going to end up being 7 feet long. So that's as far as it's going to go.
Where are you
Oh yeah,
located, Randy?
that's a measure twice.
That's a Frank Salerno size boat.
Mhm.
Where are you
I think-
located, Randy?
Sorry, what's that?
Where are you located?
I'm up in Calgary.
Oh, Calgary. Okay.
Did you guys see? I noticed on eBay, the guy I sold that big missile boat. What the hell was it? In 48 scale.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking. The
It's
six-
George Washington.
No,
yeah,
not
yeah,
George.
yeah.
No, it was.
It was the George Washington.
God, what was it? It's just Ben Franklin class, I think.
Yeah,
It was
48.
48 scale. It's huge. But he's selling it for, I think he's asking $2,000 on eBay right now. The work that was conducted to that point was actually quite good, but it still needs a ton of work to finish out.
That was one of Andre's boats, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. Hey, Frank, go look on eBay. That's the boat you wanted.
I know.
Me too.
$2,000. It could be it could be yours. $2,000.
I got a backlog of boats got to be built, and I keep getting yelled at. When is it going in? When is it going in?
Yeah, when is it going in, Frank?
Hey, Frank, when is it going in?
I was happy to hear other people get asked that question too.
Always a bridesmaid, never a bride with Frank.
Steve Hodge is my idol. He's got me beat already.
I've got a question for you. I'm getting ready to cut the sturgeon to put the 3D printed section on the back.
Yeah.
To cut it squarely, cut the fiberglass? Would a chop saw be okay just to cut it, or is it going to tear the fiberglass all up?
Oh, we have a big curve.
Well, I've got a whole separate piece.
Yeah, there's a whole new stirred section that's going on it.
Well, I'd just mark it off and go with a hacksaw.
You know what I used that I really worked out well? You know those vibrating saws? You set up a straight edge and you run that thing along it, it cuts beautiful.
Okay. Yeah.
No, hardly any kerf at all.
See, I'm just going to cut and put that on the tail end of it where the rudder and then try and get the bearings and shafts all straight and parallel. I was just worried about cutting the other one and getting this caca all over it. Just using a chop saw would just be perpendicular.
Like honestly, Ernie, I would use a chop saw. I would use a chop saw in a heartbeat.
I'd cut it big and then file it to size.
Right? Yeah. I know.
You go for exact, you're gonna fuck it up.
Well, it'll be a sturgeon long haul.
Getting back to the Lexan, to the tubing. Here's an interesting thought. I've had an idea, and I wonder how the masters would do it. Okay, we know we could cut the tube now with a chop saw, but what if you wanted to make a longitudinal cut, like, a very wide slot or something?
That's why God gave us milling machines.
Yeah, you'd have to do that with a milling machine. You'd want a rectangular cutout lengthwise.
Now I have a milling machine, but how I would do it is I would cut a piece of wood, the shape that I wanted cut out, and double back tape it to my tube, and then take that vibrating saw and then run it right alongside it, and it'll come out perfect.
Yeah,
It
one
is
of those.
George Washington, by the way.
What's that?
It's a George Washington.
No, I think he was a Stonewall.
Oh, George Washington Carver.
George Washington, that's it.
It is
Was it 637 or 640 something is the hull number?
Good. Now I don't have to buy it.
That Carver made peanut butter.
I don't know. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah.
125 inches long.
Wow.
They didn't have the fairing, right, Dave, where the hull, the bow comes up to the fairing to the missile deck. That wasn't quite done yet on that, if I remember right. There were just a couple of ribs there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was a big solid boat.
Wasn't the George Washington Carver kind of getting close to the end of the production of the Benjamin Franklin class?
Yes. Let's see.
Yeah.
What's the hull number?
I don't know. I'll tell you in a second.
Anyway, Frank, when you talk about the vibrating saw, you're talking about that tool with the blade you can change on the end to a sander to a.
Yeah. Hold on.
Show everybody what we're talking about.
What doctors use for decades to remove casts from people with
Yeah, exactly.
Oh.
big tool.
Can you see it?
Yeah. So, okay. So the cutting edge is the far edge.
Right here.
Okay.
It's an oscillating blade.
It's not even a 16th wide.
And you would go that strap a form onto it and then follow along that.
Yeah, just go right alongside it.
Okay.
Ed, it's 656.
656. Yep. One of the last of the Ben Franklins.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as good as a Lafayette or James Madison, right, Dave?
Oh yeah.
Baby killers.
Continent killers.
From those who cared to send the very best. You ever tell them about the Hershey effect?
The Hershey effect. That sounds familiar.
The first missile drops a bunch of Hershey bars. When the kids jump out of the orphanages, we nail them with the A3s.
Send that in a letter to Putin now.
Oh, I think he understands the concept perfectly.
Did anybody see that show on TV last night about the Jimmy Carter's Mission 7? Black Ops declassified. It was pretty interesting. They speculated they picked up one of the hyper ballistic missiles.
What channel? What was that on, Ernie?
Science Channel.
Oh, I
gotta look that up.
They salvaged one of their test rounds.
Yeah, and they actually flew the pirate flag in 17.
No, we don't need to know that shit.
Yeah, I never would have thought of it. I thought it went up there for listening like they did off Vladivostok.
Yeah. Oh well.
Dave, Ed, can you see it?
Yeah.
I just cut, this is plexiglass. I just cut it 2 seconds. Now, if I was making a nice clean one, I would drill a hole the diameter of the slot that you wanted, and then connect the dots with that saw. And it, no melting, no nothing. It just went right through it.
Nice.
Okay.
I
have an idea.
Uh-oh.
Yes. To be continued.
All right, I need to sign off, but you guys can obviously hang around. I I got an early morning tomorrow. Well, I won't be in the shop tomorrow, but I'll be in next week.
You have an early morning every morning.
Yeah, but this is like an early morning.
I'm surprised you didn't pass out yet.
I'm good. 8:40. It's like I can take 40 minutes past my bedtime.
8:40.
I got a question for you on your universal support for the cylinder.
Hmm?
You can order 3 of them, but if you got a weird one like that 3.5 and a 3, how do you order that? Because it says just order 3s, 3.5.
Yeah, I mean, the idea was that most cylinders are like a set diameter all the way across. Just reach out, or just, you know what, just buy the cheaper one and put a note and say, hey, I need one of them to be 3 3/4 or whatever. We'll hook you up.
Okay,
We make it super easy.
Oh, one shout out, Dave Merriman. Thank you very much for the Vanguard plans. I owe you breakfast at Cahuta, and they'll be going back out in the mail tomorrow. I got what I needed. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad to help there, Ed.
Hey, Howard, did you want to take a minute and use what you're working on, or do you want to hold off on that?
Let's hold off. I gotta beat it too. So
Okay.
anyway, but I'll tell everybody next time we can share what we're doing.
All right, sounds good. It's super exciting. I think you guys will be pretty stoked about it. I know I am. All right, I'll take off, and you guys have a good time. Just a reminder, it's Saturday next time, and it's in the calendar. So we didn't get quite as good a turnout as we do typically on Saturdays, but this was the first Thursday, so maybe people just forgot.
And some people had to learn how to read your schedule.
I won't tell them what you did because I don't want to embarrass you. It's all.
I'm a total idiot.
All right, you guys have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.
Bye, Bob.
Take care.
See you next week, Bob.